It was a scene ripped straight from a science fiction novel. Elon Musk, the billionaire tech titan known for electric cars and dreams of Mars, stood beside President Trump in the Oval Office. The year was 2025, and America was about to get a serious makeover, courtesy of Silicon Valley. Musk, with his signature swagger, promised to drag the federal government, kicking and screaming, into the 21st century. His weapon of choice? Efficiency. Musk's message was blunt. The government, he declared, was a bloated, wasteful behemoth. It was drowning in bureaucracy and riddled with inefficiency. The solution? Drastic cuts, a leaner workforce, and a healthy dose of technological disruption. Gone were the days of endless paperwork and sluggish processes. Musk promised a future where algorithms ruled and taxpayer dollars stretched further than ever before. This was not just talk. Trump, with a stroke of his pen, signed an executive order granting Musk unprecedented authority. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, was born, with Musk at its helm. His mission to identify and eliminate waste, streamline operations, and ultimately shrink the size and scope of the federal government. The message was clear: the era of big government was over. But behind the flashy promises and bold pronouncements, a sense of unease lingered. Was this the dawn of a new era of efficient governance? Or were we witnessing a dangerous power grab cloaked in the language of progress? The answer, as with most things in Washington, was far from clear. Musk's vision for a leaner, meaner government rested on a simple premise: efficiency above all else. Waste was the enemy, and he, the self-proclaimed slayer of inefficiency, was here to vanquish it. His team, composed of tech whizzes and data analysts, descended upon federal agencies like digital auditors. Armed with algorithms and spreadsheets, they scoured budgets, scrutinized programs, and identified targets for elimination. The message was clear: every dollar spent, every employee retained had to justify its existence. No department was safe from scrutiny. From the Department of Education to the Environmental Protection Agency, long-held assumptions were challenged, and sacred cows were led to the slaughterhouse of efficiency. The cuts were swift and deep. Programs deemed redundant or ineffective were axed. The federal workforce faced mass layoffs, as thousands of government employees received pink slips. Musk, unfazed by the growing chorus of criticism, argued that these were necessary sacrifices on the altar of efficiency. He promised that the savings would be channeled into tax cuts and investments in cutting-edge technologies. But as the dust settled, a troubling question emerged. What was the true cost of this efficiency crusade? Were we sacrificing essential services and expertise for the sake of a balanced budget? And at what point did the pursuit of efficiency morph into a reckless disregard for the needs of the American people? One of the most unsettling aspects of Musk's government overhaul was the shroud of secrecy that enveloped it. Decisions were made behind closed doors, with little to no input from Congress or the public. Data used to justify cuts was often deemed proprietary, shielded from public scrutiny. When questioned, Musk offered vague assurances, claiming that transparency would compromise the efficiency of the operation. This lack of transparency fueled a growing sense of unease. Critics, including lawmakers from both sides of the aisle, raised concerns about accountability. Who was holding Musk accountable for his decisions? What metrics were being used to measure success? And what safeguards were in place to prevent abuse of power? The administration's response was dismissive. They argued that the urgency of the situation demanded swift action, unencumbered by bureaucratic red tape. Transparency, they claimed, was a luxury they could ill afford. But for many, this explanation rang hollow. The very foundations of democratic governance, they argued, rested on transparency and accountability. By operating in the shadows, Musk and Trump were chipping away at the bedrock of American democracy. Section 4. The axe falls. Who feels the pinch? The impact of Musk's efficiency drive was felt most acutely by those who relied most heavily on government services. The axe fell hardest on agencies and programs deemed non-essential by the DOGE's algorithms. The USAID, responsible for providing humanitarian aid around the world, saw its budget slashed, forcing it to scale back critical programs in war-torn regions and developing countries. The National Institutes of Health, a global leader in medical research, faced deep cuts, jeopardizing groundbreaking research on diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's. Scientists and researchers, their work abruptly halted, warned of the long-term consequences of such short-sightedness. The social safety net, already fraying at the edges, was further strained. Programs like SNAP, or food stamps, and TNF, welfare, were scaled back, leaving vulnerable families struggling to make ends meet. The message was clear. In Musk's vision of a leaner government, there was little room for compassion or social responsibility. Section 5. A government starved, the erosion of public services. As the cuts took hold, the consequences of Musk's efficiency crusade became impossible to ignore. The machinery of government, starved of resources and manpower, began to grind to a halt. The IRS, grappling with a shrinking workforce, struggled to process tax returns, leading to delays and frustration for millions of Americans. The EPA, its regulatory power significantly diminished, found itself outmatched by polluters, leading to a surge in environmental violations and a deterioration of air and water quality. The very fabric of American society, woven together by a complex web of public services, began to unravel. Public schools, deprived of funding, struggled to provide even a basic education. National parks, once a source of pride and wonder, fell into disrepair. The promise of a more efficient government, it seemed, had come at a steep price. The erosion of the very services that made America a just and equitable society. Section 6. The uncomfortable questions: power, accountability, and the future. Elon Musk's foray into the heart of the American government raises a host of uncomfortable questions about power, accountability, and the future of democracy itself. Can a single individual, no matter how brilliant or well-intentioned, be entrusted with such vast authority over the machinery of government? And what happens when the relentless pursuit of efficiency trumps other values, such as compassion, equity, and the common good? The saga of Doge is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that even the most well-intentioned reforms can have unintended consequences. It is a story that compels us to confront fundamental questions about the role of government in a democratic society. Is the government simply a bloated bureaucracy ripe for disruption? Or is it, as some argue, the embodiment of our collective will, the instrument through which we strive to create a more just and equitable society? Section 7. Beyond the hype, a legacy yet to be written. The legacy of Elon Musk's government overhaul is still being written. Only time will tell whether his quest for efficiency will ultimately strengthen or weaken the foundations of American democracy. One thing is clear: the experiment is far from over. As we navigate the uncharted waters of the 21st century, we must proceed with caution, mindful of the delicate balance between progress and the enduring values that underpin a just and equitable society.